Hi, welcome to Storm the Field on this Monday, October 24th of 2022, following week 8 of the college football season. I'm Mathis. I'm joined here by Quentin and Rob, and energy level's going to be a little bit low on this one cuz we kind of had a little bit of a rough go at it this week. I didn't get to watch really any of the second half of the afternoon slate or the night slate. And so, Rob, we're gonna have to defer to you on some of those because I only can tell you what I saw from the box score. And if y'all don't already know, Rob's team they lost. South Carolina coming off a bye. My team they had a tough one out in Stillwater. And so, Rob, I'll go easy on you if you go easy on me. And so,
Hey, let's do this. We've already agreed to go easy on each other, but feel free to pick on Quentin out of frustration. He'll
oh,
be our punching bag today.
I have a punching bag. We'll get to them in a little bit, and it's kind of if you expect me to
I
be
have one
reasonable
too.
today,
I
then
have a punching bag too, but Duke is out in the backyard.
if you expect me to be reasonable today, then you're gonna be disappointed because that's not how it's gonna be. And this is how this show is gonna be moving forward. We're gonna be making some changes, get it a little more entertaining, take it a little less serious. Think that'll help us out a little bit, make it a little more fun. And so we're gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way. This one's not gonna be fun. Oklahoma State bounces back at home against UT following a loss to
Oh,
TCU.
good lord!
And I mean, credit to Oklahoma State because they came out on top in this game. Their defense really did step up in the second half. And this is one that I had playing in the car, so I couldn't watch a whole lot. Uh, but I did get to
You
listen,
were
and
driving too.
yeah, I was pretty frustrated. Quinn Ewers in Texas, they could not connect on any of those passes. And I know it was windy, but that's not an excuse for some of that stuff. I mean, it's right in front of you, and you can't catch it in the end zone. You're losing your feet. I mean, there's just too many opportunities that you missed on. And I mean, the penalty margin was 119 yards and 14 penalties for Texas and zero for Oklahoma State. And I'm not questioning the 14, but like you're telling me there's no holds, no pass interference. Like it's like
Yeah. Say that again. Oklahoma State had no
no
penalties.
penalties.
Yeah. I was yeah, at the end of the game they showed that and it's like I think Texas had 11 at the time. It's like wow, that almost seems like homebrew cooking.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't want to put on a tinfoil hat or anything, but as y'all know, Texas and Oklahoma are both leaving for the SEC. These are Big 12
And
games and Big 12 officiated games. And so I'm not saying this cost Texas the game because Texas didn't
yeah,
play good enough to win. But you're going to see a little bit of a slant in those categories going forward, I feel.
Oklahoma State fans towards the end of the game were yelling SEC, SEC. I could hear them.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things, Mathis. I don't think you're going to like, but an interesting stat. Quinn Ewers' first and last pass of the game were both his two interceptions. The first one was probably a misplay on the receiver running the wrong route. The last one was
Bounced off.
pretty much a desperation trying to
Yeah.
push the ball upfield so they can get in scoring position for the last play of the game. But uh, something else, I don't know what you want to make of it, but uh, Texas scored 31 in the first half, 3 in the second half. And I
Yeah.
think that it was a I think Oklahoma State just held on barely in the first half and the fourth quarter was just all of them. They were down by 7 starting the fourth quarter and won the game by 7. And I'll say this wasn't indicative of how Texas played, but Oklahoma State's last touchdown was just really bad tackling. Two Texas players basically running into each other. Oklahoma State receiver, put his foot on the brake, and those two guys
I
just
saw
kind
that
of
when we were
ran
parked.
into. And yeah, that was. When I thought that, I texted you guys before when the game was tied. I texted y'all when the game was tied, not when Oklahoma State had the lead. And if I remember correctly, that was their only lead of the game, was it?
Um, they started
I
out with
think
the
it might
lead.
have been. Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Maybe three, or did they score a touchdown?
it was 3. Then
But
Texas scored a touchdown. Then they scored. So they were up.
I'll say this: I thought it was a very exciting game, and TCU beat Kansas State.
Oh, we'll get that one in a minute.
Uh, I think right now TCU is going to play the winner of Oklahoma State, Kansas State when they end up playing. I don't know when that is, but right now that's not a for sure deal, but
Yeah, I mean, anyone with 2
Texas,
conference losses or less is technically still in it.
yeah, I mean Texas, yeah, Texas can, but they've lost the tiebreaker to Oklahoma State. They can beat TCU.
They could have it.
If
They
they
could
lose,
potentially have a tiebreaker on TCU and Kansas State.
right? But
It's a little out of their
Kansas
hands.
State beat Oklahoma State today.
I think if Texas gets one more loss, I think their only prayer is getting the second spot, and they do it by a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it'd have to be by a tiebreaker because
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean honestly, they just haven't played consistent enough this year, and you can say that's a culture thing. Largely, I think they're putting that behind them because you've definitely seen them play more consistent than they did last year, and I mean they're still trying, and I mean they didn't have it at the end of that game. They had to punt, and then they got it with a minute left, and they just went right down there again. They didn't really put their head down. They fought till the end. I think you just lost the game, and I don't think that it's a look ahead thing where you need to worry about the future. I think you're a young team. You just not messy on penalties. Your young quarterback just didn't play very well. I think you're going to be better for it, and they're going to be fine.
I hate to say this, but Texas is a very scary team. I think they are improving. They've had 3 losses, but all 3 were one drive away from taking the lead. I think you can say the same thing to A&M. The 3 of their 4 losses were one drive, but they were dominated in 2 of those 3 games.
Speaking of A&M, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're spending a little too long on this first one. I really do hate to say it, Rob, but I took Trey's shirt in upset alert, and I said in Jimbo,
South Carolina, you give the opening kickoff return for a touchdown. I mean, it's downhill from there, and it got bad. I think A&M played well late in the game to make it close and give themselves a shot. But when you're trying to get a game-winning Hail Mary from your own 40, you don't really have a prayer. All you can hope for is a pass interference. But it's not the NFL. You only get 10 or 15 yards. So
yeah, I mean,
they stunk it up the whole game. I'll be honest with you. I had the TCU What game did I
Kansas
have
State.
on? The TCU Kansas State game. I had the volume on that game on probably 75% of the time that the A&M was playing. I just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I actually have this segment titled based off the reference to my upset alert pick. I said in Jimbo we don't trust off of Trey's shirt, and so that's what that says. And
or you might distrust.
Yeah, in Jimbo we distrust. And I think this did answer the question I asked. Did Jimbo and A&M win the bye week? The answer is no. On their schedule, it says, what are they, 3-4?
They're 3-4 now.
Yeah, but I would count that bye week as a loss too because you had a chance to go in there and clean stuff up and you didn't. The key to beating A&M right now is score 25 points if you're an FBS team. They've got above that 24-point number once. It was first week of the year against Sam Houston State, which we were at, by the way, for the first part. Yeah, I just
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you saw the opening kickoff, but
I didn't get to see a
they
single
took it
snap.
up they took it up the right side, and it wasn't like, all the credit to South Carolina, but it wasn't like he
Did
put
anything
moves on us.
special?
He ran through, and there were a group of like 6 or 7 guys, combination of Aggies and Gamecocks, and he came out of it. He came out of it stumbling, got his balance, and ran the last 50 yards.
Wow.
There were at least 2 or 3 Aggies that should have been able to push him out of bounds. My gosh,
All right.
you know
Before we
that
move
was
on to this next one, because Rob, I'm sparing you here, but do you think the season is salvageable? Do you think 8-4 is
absolutely
realistic? See, I mean, with problems like this, when you're losing close, you'd think that hey, you can just need to tighten some stuff up, but you've already gone through your bye week, and the problems you have are schematically on offense, and it's from a playbook perspective. I don't know what you can fix in a week. I
not.
think it's going to take an off season
The
and some
the
changes in the
Alabama
staff.
game they played real well, and that was a toss up on the last drive. So they had a chance to legitimately win that game. They were never in the Appalachian State game. They were never in the Mississippi State game, and and you know
They got into
with
they made it interesting, but
South Carolina, they put themselves in the game towards the end, but they didn't give themselves a legitimate shot on the last drive. So, of our 4 losses, really only one of them, even though they all were basically one-score games, uh, at best, I would think the Aggies would be 4-3 with the way they've played instead of 3-4, and I don't know. I mean, you still got Ole Miss coming up. You've got LSU is playing good. I mean, we got what is it, UConn? You can put that one down, but I'm not so sure
that's
about
UMass.
that. UMass.
Quentin, I'm
Um,
sorry. I probably skipped you like 3 or 4 times by now. So, do
I'm
you
not
have anything you want to add?
just to finish up on the Aggies right now. I'm not so sure they're going to go bowling.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough road.
And maybe they need to not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I I think we need to take a lot of heat off of Jimbo because I mean last year it's not like they didn't score the ball. I mean they definitely scored the ball last year. I think a lot of it has to do with like personnel at the beginning of the year, and then now it's just the locker room is just lost. There's like no because I mean when you see a guy go 103 yards on literally the first seconds of the game, it's demoralizing to your team. Like, there's not much Jimbo Fisher could have done to save that game. I feel like once they returned that kick, it was over.
yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and spare you, Rob, or we're gonna move on
Hey,
to.
remind everybody why you're asking me these questions first.
I couldn't think, to be honest with you.
That, that doesn't it typically run based on who won the pick'em the previous week.
The what?
The pick'em.
I never heard of it. Okay, so we're going on to the game that I missed a lot of these other ones for. We got TCU with the comeback win over Kansas State.
And how
And
did you miss that game?
no,
You
I
were
said
there.
this is the game I missed them for.
Okay.
I ended up missed probably the first half of the first quarter because I was driving around Fort Worth. And Rob,
Y'all were late to the game.
I kid you not, we left your house at 4:45.
Yeah, you left 30 minutes early.
We were trying to park by like probably 6:15, and we couldn't find a spot. They ended up charging us $20 to park like 3 miles away. It was ridiculous, and then had someone gripe at me for being late when I got out, and I was like, hey, it's all right. I'm not gonna worry about it. But I was having a little bit of road rage there for a little bit, and going into this game, I kind of had a sour attitude. I'm going to dial it back about 10 points. And so before I say anything, I'm going to let Quentin go ahead and start because I feel like he's hardly got to get a word in.
Yeah. I don't know. I think TCU, I think they looked impressive. I feel like they came out really slow. I feel like that was a problem, but they really did look impressive. But I don't know. I mean, I guess you can blame it on Adrian Martinez going out, but he only threw two passes. They scored most of the points without him. So I'm not gonna act like their offense wasn't capable of scoring when they went up 20 without Adrian Martinez.
I do have a point on that here in a minute.
Their backup came in, and I think his first 4 drives were touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like,
and then punt.
They were down by 18,
field goal.
28 to 10.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't even think. Yeah, they went. TCU went. I guess 28 unanswered points.
TCU doesn't play big, but they sure are. I mean, I would be scared if I were one of the top 7 ranked teams. I would worry about TCU.
I would not want to play them right now.
Yeah.
Rob, go ahead and say what you want to say because I do have a little bit of a rebuttal to some of that.
I think clearly TCU's the team to beat in the Big 12.
Agreed.
I think, if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship, which right now you got to assume that's who it's going to be, and if there's a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan, right now I'd say you'd be hard pressed to keep TCU out. I think in the Pac-12 now. Okay, you can make a case for Clemson as well, but TCU has more wins against ranked teams than any other nation right now, and 4 in a row, 4 teams in a row. I think right now they're not one of the top 4, but how do you kick them out?
Yeah. Just to kind of rebuttal just a little bit. I mean, first, I want to go ahead and give credit to Sonny Dykes because if you look at that game, it went 28 to 10. TCU came down, scored right before half, right? It was great clock management because they ended up getting that. They got the ball. They started out, and they ended up scoring again. So you get 14 points pretty quick. There might have been a punt and a stop somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly. But you were able to flip. It's like a 2-for-1 in basketball. And so you were pretty much able to cut that lead in half pretty quick.
Yeah.
And the defensive adjustments, I think, were great. Now, I think that Adrian Martinez being out, that's when it factored in. Because when you have an offensive game plan, you have something that the backup and the starter can execute. The problem is when the defense makes adjustments, the offense also has to adjust to those adjustments. The issue is when you have a starting quarterback, your playbook might be this big. When you have a backup, that playbook shrinks because you have to run plays that you feel comfortable with your backup executing. And so it really limits the way that you're able to adjust in the second half if they're able to start getting some stops. And so the second TCU got
on the same hand, the defense has to change their whole scheme because they're different style quarterbacks. But I mean, give TCU credit.
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit.
Down in the
they
second
went out.
Half. They didn't score nothing.
Yeah, they went out and did it, but I think there was something that they were able to capitalize on. I think there was an obvious deficiency that they were able to capitalize on.
If there had not been an overtime period, it could have been a Kansas State blowout. TCU made adjustments and Kansas State did not.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I want to highlight just a little bit is you were in a close game with Kansas. Kansas fumbled on the 1 yard line. I would argue that Kansas should have been ahead in that game. They weren't. Credit to TCU because they took advantage of stuff.
But man,
Jalen Daniels got hurt.
Kansas got 2 touchdown gifts from the refs.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But they also were missing their starting quarterback. Flash forward to the next week, or was it the week before? Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, you were going to win that game. They were going to beat Oklahoma regardless. So I don't want their quarterback got hurt, and they were able to roll. Spencer Sanders last week was not 100%, didn't practice all week, and they come this week, and Adrian Martinez gets hurt at the beginning of the game. I'm not creating excuses or saying TCU is not a good team, but whichever way you spin it, TCU has been on the right side of that injury bug. And can we all agree there is a context to a game or to a season? Because if you say, oh, well, if I say Alabama lost or Alabama beat A&M, then you say, well, A&M kept it close, or A&M didn't have their starting quarterback, or this or that.
Well,
there's context to a game, and I think there's some context that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. That
I have more context.
Why did Howard throw 4 touchdown passes in the first half and none in the second?
No, I'm saying they made adjustments. I'm not creating excuses, but I think that their offense is better able to adjust with Adrian Martinez at quarterback.
TCU went into I'm talking about Kansas. TCU went to Kansas, into Lawrence, and they were the hottest team in the nation by far.
And they've also lost every single game since.
Yeah, what was their record when going into the game? 5-0. They were undefeated. Kansas has not been 5-0 since 2007. They were as hot as they'll ever be. And if you want to talk about backup quarterbacks, TCU's playing with their backup quarterback right now.
I would consider him to be the starter because he started in the spring, and they decided, we're going to put the young guy in there.
Well, he didn't start the season.
He got the nod because of his age and his how much longer they'd be able to have him. New coaching staff.
I don't think it's fair to criticize TCU based off quarterbacks when Kansas State's quarterback scored 4 straight times.
Well, are you not listening to what I said?
Adrian, he played the first drive and punted. And Howard came in 4 straight drives. Whose computer is that? Is that mine?
It's someone's. It's not mine.
Where to find what you need. Let's call it turn-by-turn shopping.
Cheers, Rob.
I got it on mute. There we go. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and flip over. We got a game we were just all off on. You got LSU, who ends Ole Miss' perfect season. At one point, this game was 17-3 Ole Miss. Ole Miss got the fast start that they usually get, and LSU just said, I don't really care. They went on a 42-3 run to cap off the game. And so that was hugely impressive to me, once again, even though I could not watch it. And so, Rob, did you end up having an eye on this game, or?
Honestly, didn't get a chance to watch much of that game, but that kind of scares me because
you play both of them.
You know, from an A&M perspective, we still have to play both of those teams. So is LSU really that good? And is Ole Miss going to be pissed coming off that last loss, ruining their perfect season, potentially a chance for representing the West? I mean, they can still do it if they beat out Alabama, but I mean, this is a topic for another time. But is LSU really underranked? Possibly.
I would think so.
I mean, Ole Miss, the reason they're undefeated is because they played 2 FCS schools and then Georgia Tech, then Tulsa. That Kentucky game was a good game. That's a toss-up game.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt and Auburn. So they should have came out of that stretch 7-0 or 6-1. They did just that. So I feel like they are a little bit overrated. So
Yeah, I think this is
and
it. I mean, we talked about the overrated, underrated last week.
And to be honest with you, LSU's one missed extra point away from potentially being 7-1.
Yeah,
You know, I think, halfway through the season, a little bit past. I mean, I'm not a Brian Kelly fan, but you gotta think that he came into a very difficult situation, and he had a rough start, but they've been playing really good lately.
I mean, their offense finally woke up. I think they put over 40 points on the board in the last 2 weeks,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm really impressed with what they've done there. And I mean, really, Florida State's a good football team. They've lost the last three. They've kind of had a little rough stretch. I expect them to be right around 7, 8 wins because they're through the meat of their schedule. And geez, what was it? And their other losses against Tennessee. Tennessee's a playoff contender, and so I think LSU probably is a little too slept on here. Uh, I can't really say a whole lot because I haven't I didn't get to see him play this week, so I can't really give you any analysis. Anything else y'all want to say before we move on?
Well, I will say this: in the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out, and I know this might sound redundant, but we are going to find out who's going to represent the SEC West because Alabama plays LSU this weekend,
No, they
and
don't.
they follow
Alabama
that
has a bye, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, their next game is against LSU, and then they follow that up with Ole Miss,
Yeah,
and all three of those teams have one loss, and right now LSU's sitting pretty because in those three teams they're 1-0,
yeah.
where Ole Miss is 0-1, and
Bama's
of
none
course
and none.
Alabama hadn't played either of them, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's
LSU's
gonna
in a good
get
spot.
it's gonna get exciting.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and move on. Quentin, you suggested this, and so I'm gonna let you start off with it. We got our mid-season winners and losers, and so just give me either a winner or a loser, and then Rob, you'll go next.
my winner is Tennessee playing
That's
way
what I was
above playing way above what I expected them to be. I expected them to be like 5-2 or 5-2 right now. But obviously they've proved me wrong.
Yeah. All right, Rob. What do you think?
You know, I was gonna say Tennessee, but of all the teams that are remaining, I would say the biggest winner to date has to be TCU. I mean, we knew Tennessee was going to be good. We didn't know they were going to be this good, but nobody thought TCU was going to be better than average.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And they're 7-0 and are have a really decent shot of making the playoffs. I mean, some things have to fall their way, of course. I think they have to win
I don't
out.
think that things have to fall their way. I think if they win every game, they'll be in. They could probably even drop a
I think
game
they
if they
can
win
even
the
drop
conference.
one.
I
They're
would
in.
want to agree with you. I would want to agree with you, but if you have an
Tinfoil
undefeated
hat.
Georgia playing a one-loss Alabama team, because Alabama's going to get going to get some bias. And you have an undefeated Ohio State and a one-loss Michigan, and you have an undefeated Clemson.
They're
are
not
they
putting
gonna?
they're not putting a one-loss Georgia in over an undefeated conference champ.
Well, I think
You're probably right.
I know I'm right.
I think TCU is in. I think they can drop like the Texas game, win the conference, and I think they're still in because I feel like there's no situation where there's two SEC teams that are going to end up being undefeated because Georgia and Tennessee are on the same side of the bracket. I think that they take a one-loss conference champion over a Georgia
non-conference.
Yeah.
Over a one-loss non-conference.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Which honestly, I think wouldn't you still need to put the Pac-12 in that because in Oregon just still sitting on one loss.
Yeah, I would.
They have a good loss too.
And
I don't
if you have
see
if you have to
it
look
going
at
one
quality
loss.
of losses, though, it was a bad loss, but they lost to the number one ranked team. No, that was Utah. No.
It was
they
Oregon.
lost to number one Georgia.
I honestly don't know. I think that just the strength of schedule and just the gauntlet that you'd have to go into through the Big 12, that if TCU gets out either with one loss or no losses, they're getting in over.
over Pac-12.
Yeah. Clemson secretly, I mean, this is my winner, is Clemson because they have just been on a tear. You think, okay, this is the week. I thought it was going to be after that Wake Forest game. I thought it was going to be the NC State game. They ended up winning that one.
Then
They had
Syracuse.
kind of a sleepy game, sleepy spot against Boston College. They come through. They win that one. Then I can't remember if that was last week, 2 weeks ago, but no bye weeks in between all these. They come through, and Syracuse
beat
comes to
Syracuse.
town undefeated,
Yeah.
and they didn't
Yeah.
put their best foot forward. They had to put a backup quarterback in, but they still found a way to win that game. And everything they've done has been pretty clean. They've executed well, had explosive plays. Their defense is playing good. And I mean, they've been ahead in most of these games for the most part. They didn't that's not true for the Syracuse game, but they have played really well in especially with all the doubt that everyone had around Dabo and this coaching staff and DJ. I'm really impressed with what he's done with this program. I think that we need to give them a little more credit. And Quentin, you want to start up at the top?
You could make the same case, for Syracuse. I think Syracuse, what are they, 6-1?
Yeah.
I mean, a 6-1 Syracuse to me, I would say would be more. You could make a case that's more unrealistic than a 7-0 TCU. I mean, who would have thought Syracuse would be this? I mean, they're one game out.
I actually
Of course,
thought I think
they're
TCU's
two games
was
out
a little
because
more
they lost to
realistic.
Clemson, but
Just because I had Syracuse as like a 4-win team, and I had TCU, I think had a 7 or an 8-win team, and so I think in terms of expectations versus what's happened, I'm a little more impressed with Syracuse, but they've also had a weaker schedule, so I think up and it's a different story once we see really the back half of this schedule. I noticed there's a little too much positivity going around, and so someone throw a loser in there for me, please. And if y'all don't, then I will.
My loser.
I even write that down,
really
Rob.
I'm not gonna have like an obvious one like Oklahoma or A&M. I'm gonna go with Baylor. I expected them to be one loss at this time. I think they're 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to. They lost to BYU.
Yeah, they lost to BYU. They lost to West Virginia. Who else did they lose
Oklahoma
to?
State.
Oklahoma State.
What about BYU?
Yeah,
they lost this last
Liberty.
week.
The Christians took down the Mormons.
But I think the obvious losers, the obvious big time losers to me. Of course, I thought Notre Dame was overranked to begin with, so it's really not a major surprise. I mean, how they've fallen off the earth is a surprise to me, but I would say Oklahoma and A&M, honestly. I mean,
yeah, I didn't have A&M. I had Jimbo Fisher.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you with that one. Y'all had some good ones I didn't even really think of. I didn't put down Notre Dame. I didn't put down BYU, and I didn't put down Baylor. Those were all really good. Is there anything else y'all want to touch on before we get to our last segment and get on out of here?
No.
I think I'm good.
All right. Moving on. And I'll go ahead and say this now. I do not think this was a great slate of games, and I'm not super excited for next week because I think that we kind of have another subpar slate in terms of high-end matchups, and so it can be rough. I mean, a lot of we have rivalry game or two, but there kind of is going to be a disparity in talent level and how their seasons are going. So you had some interesting stuff on paper preseason this week, but we don't have a whole lot. It's actually going to look super good. And so we got the game of the week here. Rob, you finished first. Quentin, I don't know what you finished, but you'll go after, and I'll finish off with my game of the week. We'll just give one because I'm a little saddened.
Yeah, and I don't mean to do this to you, Mathis, but honestly, if I had a coin, I would flip it. To me, there were two games of the week, and they're both out of the Big 12. Um, I I would say probably the more exciting game was the Texas Oklahoma State.
I had it on there.
And that to me is probably the game of the week.
Yeah, it was a good one. It just didn't
From
go
a
the way I wanted
fan's
it to.
perspective, not from a Mathis perspective.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
Frustrating, made me want to pull my hair out, but it was a good game. Quentin?
I'm going to go with the other Big 12 game, TCU versus Kansas State.
Y'all left me my first option, so thank you. Do you want to elaborate, say anything on the game, Quentin?
No, everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows. Mine is that I'm gonna head my way to the ACC with my biggest winner. Call me a homer if you want. I guess I just love me some orange because I got an orange on orange crime. We got Syracuse at Clemson. The whole game, Syracuse was outplaying Clemson. Clemson didn't put a great effort forward. They just
good game.
Early game, crowd wasn't really into it. Syracuse looked like they were going to pull the upset.
Yeah.
And Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
Decision of the game.
Dabo Swinney. Let me say two things about that game. One, who in their right mind would pull their starting quarterback and they pull out a win with their backup? Now, when Clemson took over the lead, to me, the game was over.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like Syracuse was going to come back. The two Big 12 games that we talked about, that literally came down to within the last minute. I mean, both of those could have swung the other way.
I mean,
and that's why I think it was a more exciting game. But it seemed like halfway through the fourth quarter, I didn't have any concerns that Clemson wasn't gonna hold on to that lead.
Well, I would argue that I think TCU's game was kind of open and shut before the Clemson-Syracuse game was. I mean, I think Syracuse had the ball down 6 points with like a minute 30.
Yeah, but it just didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like.
Well, I can
Syracuse,
tell you.
I mean,
TCU they were up, and as soon as they took the lead, it was over. That was like 12 minutes left. Kansas State didn't move the ball since they scored their last touchdown.
Yeah,
true, but they didn't get anything in the third quarter, but they moved the ball pretty well in the fourth quarter. They just weren't able to finish anything out.
I mean, they had a few pop plays, but I mean, it was nothing like serious or. Yeah. All right. Well, kind of a dud this week. I think I'm a little frustrated too because I have Brees Hall and DK Metcalf in my fantasy team, and they both knee injuries. Both might be out for the entire season now. And
oh man.
Yeah. So started off 6-0. I was putting up like 160 points a game, and this week I put up like 73. So. That's a dud. It's been a rough week for me in the sports world, and so I'm going to get out of here and just try and refocus, add some people on the waiver wires, make my picks, and let's just hope it's better next week. And so
we don't have a lot of good college football games scheduled, but I'm counting
there's always
on there
good
being some
games.
good games.
There's always good games. It just might not be the games you expect.
Yeah.
They might not have any.
It's definitely going to be the case now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be jumping and screaming when 2 and 5 teams are playing each other. So I'll find my entertainment value out of it, and that's why we do this. I mean, we could sit here and talk about those games for an hour if we wanted to. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Trying to get this channel kind of up and going. It's been a little stagnant as of late. Guarantee you no one's watching right now, so we're just talking to each other. But if anyone does happen to be watching now, we have our socials down below. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you would. It does us a huge favor. Tells you like it. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, then let us know in the comments. Thank y'all for watching, and we will see you on Thursday. Bye.